I think it's still Zach Greer. He's at Bryan College, and you know, I get a first-hand look at him when I was at Ohio State last year in the playoffs, and you know, I haven't seen a player like that in quite some time. You know, so I think him and Danny Gladding is two great players from the attack position, but there's a lot of good ones out there, and I think only time will tell as we get closer.
And I think a couple of names that kind of come to mind, at least for me, is a guy like Michael Evans for us. You know, he has been overshadowed by a Matt Danowski, a Paul Rabel, a Steven Pizer. You've got guys like that. You've got the Brattons, who are, you know, outstanding talents, and you know, it's probably unfair, the expectations people had on those two young men their freshman year. How could they ever live up to that? And they're very talented young men. You'll see some of the midfielders down at Duke maybe come more to the forefront. You got some younger attackmen at Maryland now will have grown up a little bit and will step up. You know, Hardy and Nims up in Syracuse, those are two names that you kind of have to keep on your radar screen.
The Boyle kid at Hopkins certainly is a threat to us. You know, on the attack side of things, I think he's a kid attack-wise who will step up. And the Nims kid at Syracuse, I think is in that role as well, where he's now going to be the prominent guy on their team, you know, as one of their top players. I'm happy to see Paul Rabel leave, and I'm happy to see Mike Lavelle leave from Syracuse. So we'll be happy to play those guys without them in the lineup.
You know, Max Siebold comes to mind as someone that, you know, just reminds me, and we don't play Cornell, but just getting a chance to watch him and some of the things that he could do on a lacrosse field is pretty special. So, but I know that there's you know, Virginia's got a bunch of them that could emerge. Carolina, Duke, Hopkins, they're Syracuse. They're all doing well with that.
You know, we certainly lost a pretty big class. When you look at guys like Lavelle Brooks, you know, Hopkins had you know, Rabel, who was, you know, as good as it got in college lacrosse. But I would imagine that when they move aside, the growth of the game has gotten to the point where once they move aside, maybe they won't have the household names coming in, but I would imagine by the end of the year there's going to be those Paul Rabels, maybe just you know, playing for some other teams this year, which I would imagine are going to have the same impact for their teams that those guys did for Johns Hopkins last year.
If I had a draft right now, I would take Matt Abbott first. I think Matt Abbott is the finest lacrosse player in the country. When you look at overall things, I think you'll see Gladding step up this year at Virginia. You know, he is a phenomenal player who was very reverent to Rubior, you know, and he, you know, and Rubior, and rightfully so, you know, and so you have those kind of guys that you say, wow, this kid's going to step up and be really, really dangerous.
The one I look at, and he may not have the stats at the end of the day to prove it, but I look at the Syracuse's Matt Abbott. He's a man who really has impressed me, his defensive skill, but then to bring the ball to the offensive end. And what a weapon when you can invert the other opposing offensive midfielder who was trying to get out of the game, but Matt's trapped him. And Matt can be such an effective weapon on the offensive end, in the middle of the field, the transition game. He's made such an impact on me that we've looked to our own team and said, you know, who can be Matt Abbott for us? And we look at it now in the recruiting process. So I'm gonna pick Matt Abbott as potential player of the year.
Matty Abbott is one of our captains this year, has done a great job. I think he's probably, I would feel comfortable calling him the best player in the country based on all the things that he does. You know, offensively, defensively, wing on the face-off, clearing the ball for us. We'll play man down, may play some man up. You know, so you're asking a guy that just plays so many different positions and is such a great all-around player. You know, I think he's going to be one of our great leaders on the field this year.
I'll tell you, the kid that I'm very impressed with at Syracuse is the Abbott kid. I don't know, I forget his first name, but know his dad pretty well, know his grandfather pretty well. His grandfather was an official back in the days when I was at Hobart. Bumped into both of them the other day at a high school thing. But that kid is an impressive athlete. He plays well at both ends of the field. He just complements other players extremely well. Can score if you need him to score. Can play man down. He can play defense. He's the prototypical old-time midfielder. He can play at both ends of the field, and I'll tell you what, he is fast. He's faster than I am. I mean, that kid can run. I mean, he is. You know, he can get up and down the field, and he can go all day. He's a pretty impressive athlete.